Wow.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Again, we're so excited to have you guys on tonight. Can everybody hear me clear? Can everybody? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, thumbs up. All right, as we start tonight, we're so grateful that you've joined us for the second night and the last night of the Comeback Boot Camp. And we normally, again, do Comeback Boot Camp the week of Holy Week, because many Christians around the world, they celebrate Holy Week, where Jews celebrate Passover. And we believe that during this pivotal time in our history, it is so imperative that we in making these real comebacks. Please mute your phone too. If you have to mute your phone, please mute your phones. One thing we have to understand as we make the comeback is that you can do it. If you're stuck with trying to get your bearings after coming out of a pandemic, you can do that. Why? Because Easter and resurrection has everything to do with a comeback. It's the greatest story of a real comeback. After being dead, Jesus, our Savior and King, for 3 days. And so we figured that we should really think serious. If we're stuck, if we feel like we're at the bottom, if we feel like we're kind of off course because of the pandemic, for the last probably 5 years now, we've been doing comeback camps for men. And I thought, you know what a great time to do comeback camps for family. Why? If you watched any of my interviews with Dr. Corey, we talked about how families are struggling because of isolation and separation with the pandemic. And even though many places have opened up, they're struggling psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so we thought, just in case there's been a lot of tension, or not even a lot of tension, you're looking for strategies or you're looking for motivation on how to come back. We thought it was so necessary to offer this comeback camp to people around the country, not just here in Indiana and Indianapolis. I also want to say that everybody loves a comeback story. And when you talk about Easter, they certainly thought Jesus was dead. And yet we find him after 3 days, getting up from the grave and making a comeback. Last night, we used the biblical text of Peter, and we will finish that tonight, to talk about the reasons why we need to make a comeback, because some of us, we feel like we have disappointed someone we love. Peter felt like he disappointed Jesus, and he went out and he wept bitterly. And someone who's joining me the first time tonight, you may be wearing the hat of disappointment. Secondly, we said the reason why we need to make comebacks is because some of us feel defeated because we said what we was not going to do. Peter told Jesus, I'll never deny you. And he found himself denying Christ. So some of us need to make a comeback because we didn't keep our word, or we found ourselves committing an act that we said we were not going to do. And then lastly, I said, some of us need to make a comeback because sometimes depression can get the best of us. Our emotions can get the best of us. And we got to figure out, how do we make that comeback? Well, on last night, we were blessed by the Moncriefs, and they talked about how you can make a comeback even when you struggle with forgiveness, or you struggle with forgiving yourself, or how you struggle with guilt. And some of us are not prisoners that are locked up. We're prisoners in our own hearts and our own minds. And then Miss McKenzie, she just blessed us so much. A young lady who was on the ventilator for 31 days and then rehab for another 2 weeks. And she talked about steps with her comeback. And her father and mother blessed us so much that we ended last night on Mackenzie's words when she, her dad told her, fight, baby, fight. So opening up tonight, you know, when I taught at the university, we would normally learn from the andragogical approach. And that meant that we learned from one another. There are people on tonight who's on for the first time, and I'm just going to ask for a takeaway. Deacon Manuel, give me your takeaway from last night. You know I was going to call on you. You was already smiling. Let's welcome Deacon Manuel. Let's welcome him with a boot camp. Guys, unmute yourself and do what we normally do with that call. What's that call? What's that call? One more time, say it like you mean it. Let's, okay, ladies, I'm not gonna leave y'all out. Let me hear you, ladies. Let me hear your call. Let me hear you. Let me hear you. Y'all even got Mrs. Webster saying it. Y'all even got her, Mark's mother. It's good. I'm feeling real good now. I feel like it's boot camp. Okay, Deacon Manuel, your takeaway from last night.
Can you hear me, Pastor?
I can hear you very well. And then I want to ask Trent Younger and Raynell to give me a takeaway from last night.
My takeaway, Pastor, was whatever situation you are in, you know, if you fight, the Lord will fight with you.
Yes.
That was the main topic of my
takeaway. Yes. Thank you, Deacon. You want to write that down. According to Deacon Manuel, as we learn from one another with the andragogical approach. Listen, whatever situation you're in, if you fight, the Lord will fight with you. And I just want somebody to know tonight, you're not fighting this alone. You're not fighting this alone. Okay. Your wife is sitting there with you, so I don't want to discriminate. Sister Manuel, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
No. If you're fighting, your husband is fighting, fight along with him and fight together.
I love it. She said, and if you're fighting, since she's the spouse, she's fighting right alone. And y'all can fight together. All right, Mrs. Younger, Raynell Younger, I'm going to call on you first. I thought you was trying to get up and leave because I was going to call on you.
I was trying to leave.
Are you on?
Huh?
Smile now. You on camera.
Okay. Well, it's not so much of a takeaway. It's just that everybody between Brother Moncrief and Mackenzie, they just touched my heart so much. They just, like you said, you was full. I was just so full for everything they said. So that's, I mean, because every time I hear Mackenzie's story, I just cry, and it's tears of joy. And there just to see her, I'm happy.
Well, that's your takeaway. They brought you great joy.
Mm-hmm.
And how many of us really needed that lift last night? Because we hear so much negative stuff. Yeah, I'm grateful to see all of the hands. We hear so much negative stuff. And just, I texted Mackenzie and them last night. Mackenzie, last night, I talked to Brother Moncrief and Mrs. Moncrief all the time. But just for your heart to be flooded with a great story. We hear so many negative stories. We're hearing about the trial of George Floyd, and we're hearing all of these other things that are going on. And if you don't watch it, it will steal from you that joy. All right, Trent, your takeaway, and then we'll go to our section for tonight. Trent.
My takeaway was also something that Mackenzie said, that as a believer, you cannot lose. Even if God brought her out, that was a way of winning. And even if he had decided to call her home, she still won.
Yeah, that was powerful. That was powerful. Well, we're going to move tonight because I have another great story with Rakia Bacon, who will talk to us on how to deal with it day by day, a comeback after you've lost a spouse and raised children. And we'll be joined by her son, Gabe, who is also going to join her tonight, who now lives in Wisconsin. He'll talk about his comeback story from, he was in the service when his dad died. Now he's living on his own in Wisconsin. And then I want to leave a little bit of room for your comeback stories. Welcome, Rakia and Gabe. We're so happy to have you both. And this couldn't happen at a better time. And we'll be right back to you as we lay context for tonight. Okay, Ryan, take us to the outline tonight. I want to talk about, how do you make a comeback? All right. How do you make a comeback? If we need to make a comeback because of denial, if we need to make a comeback because we're disappointed and defeated, what are the steps to a comeback? Let's look at that tonight. If you want to make a comeback, let's look at these first great steps. Let's go just right back to the steps for a comeback tonight. Here we go. When we look at it, how do you make a comeback? Let's go to the screen, Ryan, where it gives you the steps. All right. So how do we make a comeback? You want to jot these down. If we have to make a comeback because of denial, defeat, and I'm not saying this for redundance, I'm saying it to make emphasis so you can get it. If we have to make a comeback because of denial, defeat, disappointment, depression, discouragement, disconnection, how do we do that? All right, number one, let's go to the next one, Ryan, not those, but when I give you all of the A's, where we go to the A's. If you're going to make a comeback, we'll do the life lessons last. The first thing you got to be willing to do, he'll get it, is ask the question. Somebody got to ask the question. There we go. Why do I need to make a comeback? Thank you so much, Ryan. Why do I need to make a comeback? You have to ask yourself that question, because, Trent, sometimes we think we got it all together. And we can think, like I said the other day, when I took my car into the shop, I really thought all it was a slow leak. But the real problem is that the rim was bent. And here's what the guy told me. He said, if you don't fix this soon, it's going to cause you some major problems. Some of us have to ask ourselves some questions. How do we make this comeback? Why do I need a comeback? And when I think about it, as I told you guys last year, it's been so tough. Last year was a tough year. And how do I just get back to my routine and then exceed that routine? Number one, ask the question. And some of us need to ask some questions to ourselves, then we can ask others. Okay. Number two, you got to answer the question. And I'm going to get to the question in just a second. You got to answer the question. Jesus asked Peter in John 21. Here's the verses. You might want to put them up real fast, Ryan. He asked Peter, do you love me? That's what Jesus asked him. So when they had eaten breakfast, Jesus said to Simon, Peter, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? And let me say this, if you're going to make a comeback, first of all, whatever it is that you're dealing with, you have to ask yourself whatever question. Jesus, since Peter had denied him, he asked Peter, he said, I want to know, do you love me? And that word love means, do you love me sacrificially? Jesus was helping Peter to make this comeback because he knew Peter had denied him. Peter was feeling defeated. Peter was disappointed. And Jesus says, listen, I'm not going to come to you pointing out all of the bad stuff. I just want to know, do you love me? He said, that's all I want to know. He said, "And do you love me more than these?" And he said to him, here's Peter, he answered the question, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Okay, if you love me, feed my lamb." But then here comes Jesus. He comes back again in verse 16 and says to him again a second time, he asks the question, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" And all I'm saying tonight, Jesus knew Peter's heart, but Peter really didn't know his heart. And let me say this as we talk about making a comeback. You can't make a comeback unless you really know your heart. Now, what Jesus was asking Peter in these two verses about love, he was asking Peter, "Do you love me?" That means sacrificially. Do you love me unconditionally? And if you're on the side of the road, or if you're dealing with need to make a comeback in your relationship, you have to really ask yourself, where is the real love? And Jesus was asking Peter this so he could show Peter his own heart. And then he said it to Peter a third time, verse 17, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" Again, if you're going to make a real comeback, somebody's got to ask the question and somebody's got to answer the question. And here's what Peter was. It says Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know all things, and you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lamb." Now, Ryan, take me back to that third point. I want to say this to you as we talk about making a comeback. You got to ask the question, but then you got to answer the question. Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me sacrificially? Do you love me unconditionally?" And Peter answered Jesus and said, "Lord, I love you." But Peter was answering Jesus saying, "I love you in a friendship way. Phileo, I love you in a brotherly and sisterly way." And Jesus was okay with that, but he just wanted Peter to know. Now, let me share this with you. This is very interesting because the reason why Peter had to make this comeback, because Peter had already told Jesus, I won't let you down. I won't deny you. And I'll fight for you. The reason why so many of us have to make comebacks because we've said things we were going to do, we didn't do it. We listen. We made promises that we didn't keep. And so Jesus went looking for Peter to help Peter make this comeback because Peter was struggling with doing this on his own. Hey, you know why I'm doing this tonight? You know why I'm doing this I did boot camp Monday night, Tuesday night? Because some of us need some help. And here's what I love about Jesus. Jesus didn't go to Peter criticizing him. He just went to Peter asking him a question. "Do you love me?" And y'all listen, if you're going to help people make comebacks, it has to be anchored in your love. And you can't major on what people have done or did to you. You got to help them in spite of how you feel. Let me say a second thing about Peter. Peter was the man. He had walked on water. Jesus had gave him the keys. He had this great revelation of who Jesus was when nobody else knew him. He said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." But let me tell you what Peter was dealing with right now. Peter needed to make a comeback because he was dealing with failure and he felt defeated. And when people are dealing with failure and they feel defeated, guess what? They do like Peter. They'll go back fishing or go back to what they know because they think they had blew it. Peter thought he had blown it all, so he had went back to the job that Jesus called him away from. Jesus had called Peter to follow him, but because Peter failed, he had went back to fishing. When you read that whole John 21, it says that the disciples had went back fishing. Now, let me say this. Most people, you might want to jot this down. This is not on my notes. Most people want to be remembered for their accomplishments and not for their failures. If you agree, thumb it up or yeah, there we go. Most people want to be remembered or celebrated for their accomplishments. Peter would love for us to hang out with talking about him walking on water. Or watch this, or cutting the man's ear off. But let me say this to you. Oftentimes we learn more from our failures than we do our accomplishments. Jot that one down. Oftentimes we learn more from our failures. How many of y'all know that failure sometimes can be our greatest teacher? But here's what normally happens. The way you make a comeback from failure is that somebody has to ask the question, not just how you feel, but what did you learn? My friend Larry Armstrong is coming out with a new book, and I suggest to all of you to buy his new book. But Leroy Armstrong, one of the things he talks about is what he's learned from his failure, Mark, and what he's learned from being down. And I love it, Mark. I'm glad to see you on. You don't have to say anything, but I love when you tell the story about what you learned from your failures. After people try to make you look bad, beat you down, but yet what you've learned from being down. And I want to say this to all of us who are watching us tonight. There are some things we need to learn from being down. Let me give you this one, Thomas, and this one is for free. Y'all know one of the greatest comeback stories ever was Tiger Woods. Now Tiger's down again. In 2013, y'all, they had Tiger Woods as one of the most unliked people in America. First, he was one of the most liked people in America. Tiger's name was everywhere. Little Tiger. But then, after Tiger went through the issue with his wife, then Tiger had 7 back surgeries. Then they found out that Tiger was human. And all of a sudden, after all of these issues, they went from loving him to hating him. And you read it in 2013, folk didn't like Tiger. But then you look at it when Tiger was 2013, they didn't like him. 2018, 2019, Tiger was one of the most talked about, likable people in our households, because you know why? Everybody was talking about how Tiger made a comeback. How Tiger Woods made a comeback. Now, let me say this to you. He's got to make another comeback. If Tiger made a comeback, guess what? You can go from being unliked to disliked. You can go from losing to winning. But you know why? I was listening to the story of why people fell back in love with Tiger again. Because they found out he was human. And Tiger began to talk about his own human weakness. And we got some great comeback stories tonight. I'm looking at Lamar Betts. One of the greatest comeback stories I know is Lamar Betts. And he may talk a little bit about his own story tonight. After losing his own limb, he was able to make it back. So what am I saying? If you want to make a comeback, first of all, you got to ask the question. Here we go. The second thing is answer the question, Ryan. Let me get him this last 2, and then we're going to bring on the Bacons in another 5 minutes. You ask the question, answer the question. Here we go. I think here's the biggie tonight. If I don't say anything else, accept Christ's forgiveness. Even though you failed, you got to accept Christ's forgiveness. Because sometimes a lot of us don't feel like we can make a comeback because we're living up under the load. No, you accept Christ's forgiveness. Now, let me help you right now. Go to the life lessons. Take this one home with you. I'm going to give you 3 things, the reason why you need to accept Christ's forgiveness. Take it home with you. Life lesson number 1. No sin is too great for Jesus to forgive if we truly repent. You can make a comeback because no sin is too great for Jesus to forgive. I don't care what it is. And you know what? Some of us don't think we can make a comeback because people are saying, you don't know what I've done. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can still be forgiven. Number two, Jesus will forgive your hurt, your worst sin. Jesus will forgive your worst sin if you turn to him for pardon. Now, I need everybody to write down the worst thing that they have to deal with. It may not even be sin. But you don't feel like you can make a comeback because this worst situation, this worst circumstance. I don't know what it is. You don't have to be sin. And you say, well, I can't do it because I got this hanging over my head. Tonight, if I don't say anything else, you can make a comeback from your worst situation. And the pandemic is a bad situation. The loss of loved ones is a bad situation. But guess what? You can make a comeback. Number three, I like this one. God's faithfulness can compensate for your greatest unfaithfulness. If you don't take anything else home with you, here's how you can make a comeback. God's faithfulness, because he's faithful to you, it can compensate for your greatest unfaithfulness. And you're like, wow. I see some of y'all scratching your head on that. Because you know why? Because sometimes emotionally, psychologically, and mentally, spiritually, and psychologically or mentally, we think that there is no compensation for our greatest unfaithfulness. I love what the Moncrief said on last night. Sister Moncrief said, hey, sometimes it was just hard for me to even look at him. But God's faithfulness can compensate for your greatest mistake, for your greatest error. All right, Ryan, number 4, and then we'll get ready for the stories and we'll bring you in. It's better to be a follower who fails than one who fails to follow. Bring me in. Now, I want you to just think about it for a moment. Because somebody is on the side of the road. And you need somebody to help you in. Let me tell you what was unique about Jesus. How do I make a comeback with my family members? How do I make a comeback with my children? How do I make a comeback with those that are in my life? Well, first of all, I said, ask the question. But can I tell you what else Jesus did? He fed Peter some food. Sometimes food helps set the atmosphere for people to relax. In that John 21, he cooked them some food. So tonight, when I talk about comeback stories, I'm so happy to have Sister Rakia Bacon with me tonight, who, you know, when you think about her story, it's a great comeback story. How many of you guys here are on with me tonight feel like already before the story, God has already spoke to you? He's already spoke to you. Just let me see your hand or your thumb up. Why, Brother Tracy? Why, Brother Tracy? Why, Brother Tracy? I don't want to do all of it. Right? Why, Brother Tracy?
Just letting me know how that his word is for me and to keep fighting, you know. The comeback for me is when I when I ended my addiction. That was my comeback.
Yeah.
And this is my 4th recovery. The first 3 because I failed and I went back doing what I know.
Yeah. Wow.
But in this 4th recovery, I've been doing everything that I've supposed to been doing.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Brother Tracy. Let me hear quickly from a lady. God has already spoke to me, and I just want to share before I put Mrs. Bacon on. I can't see all the ladies saying, just unmute. Can't see everybody.
Pastor Webster,
Yes.
this is Sister Jones.
Okay, I see you now. Okay, go ahead.
What I like about the comeback story, dealing with the Moncrief, what was laid on my mind, how they were able to forgive one another and not be prisoner to their past, and
Yeah.
how the pain and the hurt and the sorrow turn into a ministry for them, and
Yeah.
that all that they went through, God can use for his glory. And that would be the same thing for my life as well. That
Sister Jones,
my pain, my sorrow, if I
yes.
allow God to use me, can be a ministry for others.
Sister Jones, thank you so much for that, because sometimes what we need to understand is that our pain becomes a platform
Mhm.
for our story. And one unique thing about it, I know with boot camp with the men, we will talk. One of the things reason why I'm doing this boot camp for families, because people really don't have a platform to be transparent. They really don't have a platform to be transparent. I just did a piece that'll go out all over the country last Thursday in my office. And we struggle with being transparent and honest. One of the things boot camp has created is an atmosphere of honesty. And we normally say, what, brothers? What is said here, what? Say it again. We normally say what? What is said here, what?
Stays
Stays
here.
here.
One more time. What is said here, what?
Stays here.
It stays here. It stays here. And most people, it's so hard for them to create a platform like this, because once the mirror is showed on you, you tell people, start saying, I don't want people. That's why I appreciate the Moncriefs and McKenzie's. I don't want people to think that about me. You know why? Because most of us want to be remembered for our greatest accomplishments and not our greatest failures. A lot of us want to be remembered for the platform and not the pain. Thank you, Sister Jones. So tonight, as I watch Rakia Bacon and Gabe Bacon, we bring them on tonight, and I'm just going to ask them a series of questions. But Sister Rakia don't know is that she's a major inspiration. She's a major inspiration. And when I say that, let me tell you why I say that. I told her the other day when I was talking to her, she could be doing something else. She doesn't have to be engaged or involved, particularly in church ministry. She has a responsibility to raise her children, but she don't have to be engaged in serving in a marriage ministry and her husband is dead. She doesn't have to be engaged in a sister for sisters ministry because she's got two male, well, one Garrison is not grown yet. Gabe is, all right, Gabe's off, but she's still raising her youngest son. But then I see her and I listen to her. She's not loud, soft-spoken. And here's what really why I say I'm inspired by her. She's one of the few that will send me a text message of encouragement saying, I'm praying for you, I'm thinking about you, and I want you to know that you're doing a good job. Seemed like every time I need it the most, I don't never expect to get it from her, but here she comes with a text message. So welcome, Sister Rakia. And then I'm so happy to have Gabe, who's all fully grown now, living on his own. Welcome. Let's get Rakia, what we do, give her a what? Now come on, some of you guys ain't moved your mouth yet. Let me hear you guys. Come on. That's better. Okay. Now, ladies, y'all can top that. Go ahead. Y'all can go ahead. Go ahead, ladies. Okay. You know, that's just giving me a shot in the arm. I like hearing that. So, you know, and somebody may be trying to go to sleep. So just look to the next screen. Say, hey, wake up. Just look to the next screen. Just look to, you can't see him. Just look to your right or your left. Say, hey, wake up.
Wake up.
All right. So, Sister Rakia, I want to start with you tonight. Talk to us a little bit about what keeps you going. First of all, you know, I watch you make this comeback and I don't know, are you fully healed yet? But as it relates to grief, we've had a lot of ladies in the church who recently husbands have passed and they're not where you are. Talk to us a little bit about steps to finding you and getting your life back together as it relates to dealing with grief.
Well, thank you, Pastor, for this opportunity. I personally, to be honest, I'm still coming back. I'm not there all the way. And I don't know what I'm going to use to gauge that I'm there all the way. But I will say that keeping connected with God, keeping connected with the church, and keeping myself busy with the things that are beneficial to other people. I know a lot of times when we lose a spouse or lose a loved one, we want to give up. We want to feel like there's no reason to be here anymore. But I don't feel that way. I feel like there's a reason why God wakes me up every morning, and there's a job for me to do. So I try to do the best I can with everything I still have in me to go. And the crazy thing to me is, the grief thing, it hits me frequently. It hits me, I think about Stephen a lot because we were best friends. We did everything together. And when I hear of the other sisters losing their husbands or some of the ladies losing their children, it hurts again. It really hurts again. And I wish I could reach around and grab them and hold them, but I don't know that I have all the answers. But I just know for me, being able to have a purpose gives me a goal. And I learned so much from the lessons and the things that your sermons and things. That's why I have to encourage you. And I will say, even though Garrison won't show his face, there's times that he's the one that says, that's a good sermon. That's a good sermon. So those words of encouragement are also words of encouragement for me, and it keeps me going.
Wow. Tell Garrison, thanks. I appreciate that. If how old is Garrison? 17, 16?
He's 17.
Okay, so if I hear a 17-year-old say good sermon, then I must be preaching. I ain't thinking about all you grown folks, all right? Now, Gabe, here is so interesting to me because I've walked with Gabe and Garrison. I've had him out to dinner, but Gabe, I really thank God for you. I've kind of watched you at some of your toughest times because you were in boot camp when your dad passed. And then I remember you coming home at one point, you was at a very, very, very low moment. And I see you tonight, and I know, you still have to wrestle with emotions. Talk to us from how old are you, Gabe?
23.
So Gabe is still a millennial. Okay, so talk to me about what was some of the steps that you had to take in facing reality to make a comeback?
Well, some of the steps I took, I guess, looking back, I didn't realize I was kind of taking steps. When I was in boot camp, I got the call, found out my father passed away. And so I was blessed enough to be able to make it there before his passing, and then blessed again to come back up for his funeral. But I really didn't have time to process anything. I was back the very next day in boot camp doing what I needed to. And then even after that, I had more training to go through. So I really didn't get a chance to process it. And I think that kind of affected me when I got out, and that's kind of when you got to see me my lowest, because all the emotions kind of hit me at once. I was away from my mom. I was away from my family. I was in a desert for a while, and it just, a lot of stuff built up. And so first step, I guess, was just recognizing the pain. I guess I kind of just didn't really notice it. I kind of try to push it to the back burner so I could focus on my training, focus on just getting home. And so when it did get home, I felt it. So that was the first step, to recognizing the pain, realizing why you're hurting, realizing why, just kind of what's going on. And then after that is you got to figure out what you're going to do next. And that's kind of what took me the longest, was figuring out what I'm going to do next. Like, yeah, my father was gone, but I still have my mother here. I still have my brother. I still had to be a role model for him. I still had to help her out. And I kind of just started to focus on that rather than what I lost, looking at what I still had. And so after figuring out what I was going to do, I decided how I was going to do it. I wanted to be a better person. I started working on myself, we did Toastmasters for public speaking. I did a couple other things just to try to get myself up there and better. I went to school for a little bit, jobs, things like that. And then after that, I guess the support that I had is what really got me to where I am now. I wouldn't be anywhere close to where I am if it weren't for my mother here, for my little brother, my friends and family. I really wouldn't be anywhere without their help. They help coach me through, because you'll always have those moments where you get down, no matter what. Doesn't matter how long it's been, but you'll always have those moments where you get down. But having someone there to help get you up when you can't do it yourself is definitely what's gotten me to where I'm at now. So I'm grateful for my family, my friends, and everybody that's been here for me.
Gabe, that's so profound. Let me ask you a question, and then I'm going to come back to Rikia. Gabe said he recognized it. Then he after he recognized the steps that he had to take. I want to pick this up, and this is why I'm doing this tonight, because most people wrestle with support. But some people don't even recognize when their families are feeling disappointed, overwhelmed, down, defeated. And I remember your mom called me one day and said, I'm so concerned, and she brought you to the office. She was that number one support, number one cheerleader. That's why my heart is overjoyed tonight to see her in Wisconsin visiting you. Gabe is a first-time homeowner. Come on, everybody, let's get it. And so, but why is Gabe, let me ask you this. Why is having a good support group so important? And why do you feel the need to have that support and be honest in the support group? Why is that important?
Well, support group really, it gives you the help you need. I mean, you can't really do everything by yourself, even though you think you can. And so that's kind of where I was in the beginning. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to speak to anybody. Didn't want to see anybody. And my mom, like you said, she was my number one supporter, because even though I treated her rough sometimes, I didn't want to talk, she was still there for me every single day. And so having that support, it's what you need. Even if you don't think it is, even if it's what you need, no matter what. And I know certain people have trouble kind of getting to that step, getting able to ask for help. But I mean, just sending out a text, a call, an email, anything you can do to get somebody else there to understand kind of what you're going through that can help you out. The support it's definitely what you need.
Let me, I received a text from one of our younger ladies at the church, and she was telling me, one of our young ladies named Jasmine. I don't know if Jasmine on tonight or not, but she encouraged me, and she was just talking about, I won't call the name, but she said, I'm so happy that I have support, because Jasmine lives here and her family lives somewhere else. She said, but I just want to thank you for the sermons. But then she talked about her support partner. I want to say this to us tonight. Boot camp, we have accountability partners. Find you someone to support you so you can be accountable to walk through this with you. Now, Gabe, I want to say something. You probably don't remember this, but Gabe, he was in the Marines. Gabe was a tough brother to talk to, because he had this military BJ demeanor on me. He had the Marines are stern and they tough. So when I talked to Gabe, you probably forgot this. Gabe was just kind of looking at me like,
I remember.
Yeah. You remember? He just kind of looked at me like, okay. But I don't think you remember. I asked Rikia, I asked you to step out. You remember that? I asked you to step out. I said, and let me just have a moment with Gabe by myself. And all I said to Gabe then, Gabe, I loved your dad. I want you to know that I love you and I'm there for you. And it's okay. Gabe, you probably don't remember what you did. You broke down and cried. And sometimes supporting people, y'all, we don't have to always talk. In order to help people make comebacks, that's all I could say to it, because I wasn't getting anywhere with Mommy and Gabe wasn't talking. I just said, Gabe, I talked about the relationship of my love for his dad, and Gabe knew that. I didn't have to make that up. And then I told Gabe, just know we love you. If you're going to help people to make comebacks, even when you ask the questions and they don't talk to you, just affirm your love for them. Because sometimes they ain't ready to talk. They ain't ready to tell you. Relationships are built. With that said, Ricky, I want to ask you another question, because it's been how many years since?
It'll be 6 years in July.
So it's been 6 years since July, and you know, you have always been a great encourager to the men in the boot camp. What would you say to a lady whereby this is fresh? It's fresh today. And I heard what you said. Every time something happens, it's like a fresh wound that is open. What would you say, just because some ladies or men may be dealing with and need to make a comeback from grief and to find themselves, and they just, you know, but they're struggling day to day to get out of the bed, day to day to keep going. What would you say to them? Just some early things that maybe someone can do. And I'm not just talking about the death of a husband or death of a wife. There are some things that has died in your life, maybe your career. Maybe your relationship is dead and you still in the house. Just what are some of the things you can do? And then I'm going to swing to hearing a few more comeback stories.
Well, I would say, you know, one of the first things, I'd say praying is good, but sometimes you don't know what to pray for. I would say sometimes crying is good, but then sometimes your eyes dry out. You can't cry anymore. I have done some writing in some journals, and sometimes it's kind of funny. Now I have a journal where I talk about me and what I need personally. I have another journal where I talk about how bad I miss Steve. Wow. And I don't feel like I can communicate to Steve, but I know he's with God. So I would say, Lord, you know, in my journal, say, you know, tell Steve that, you know, his sons are doing this, or the girls are doing that. I don't have a problem writing that in my journal. When Steve was sick and it was really tough, and right shortly after he died, I made a CD of all the songs that we like to listen to, or songs that made me think of him. And I'll tell you, I keep that CD in my car. And sometimes I get in the car, and especially my drive to church, when I don't have to go by myself, when I get to go by myself, I can turn that music up and just crank it up and just totally just focus on what I need to do. But what gets me up every morning is, you know, when you think about, as a Christian, when we die, it should be a celebration. It hurts how we have to die, and it hurts how we have to go. And, you know, watching somebody go through cancer is no fun at all, none at all. But I do thank God that I didn't have that sudden call that my husband was killed in an accident. I got to see him and celebrate his being done with life on earth. It's a graduation of life. So as a Christian, you have to somehow find it somewhere to celebrate that you're done right here on this earth. And with that being said, I know that he's done, but I was left for a reason. I'm not done. Yes. And you know, people say, I don't know what God's purpose is for me. If he woke me up, I'm supposed to get up. If I have a job, I'm supposed to go to that job. If I'm supposed to, you know, whatever it is I have on my to-do list is what God woke me up to do. And I just try so hard to deal with that. And it's not easy, but it's amazing. I have so many friends. I think you're already aware that we don't have family in Indianapolis or Avon. We have no. Emmanuel has become my family. I do childcare, so I have children. I have all these people that reach out and hug on me and check on me. The boot camp brothers, I love you guys, because this is the funny thing is I feel like you guys are like my big brothers. And if there's any guy that's bugging me, I'm like, I'm going to get the boot camp brothers on them. So I've been real blessed to just not be bothered. I'm very happy with myself. I'm not interested in dating or anything because, like you said in boot camp, Steve was an awesome guy, and there's no way anybody could replace him. So I'm very content.
But Sister Becky, your phenomenal story. I just say kudos to you. Boot camp means, guys, what? It means because of what?
Others'
Others'
testimony.
testimony.
Christ
answered
answered
my
my
prayers.
prayers.
It means what?
Because of others' testimonies,
Christ answered my
answered my
prayers.
And tonight we're hearing testimonies and comeback stories. Gabe, any closing thing from you before we shift out and get one more story from or takeaway, and then we'll be done to get you off at 7:45. Any closing statements from you?
I guess in closing, have the support, reach out, even if you don't think you need to. There's always going to be someone that can help you out of this situation. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I'm grateful for my mom because she got me through a lot. So
Yeah.
Everyone needs help every once in a while, so make sure you get that support.
Gabe, we are just so proud of you, man. You look healthy, you look happy, and you look whole. And I just want to say we are so proud of you. What we built within the last 16 years, for those of you who are on, we have people from New Jersey, I see Arkansas, and some other people that's joining us from other places. We built a fraternity. And this boot camp is not just national, it's international. And we seek to build a platform to not give handouts, but a hand up. And we deal specifically with equipping and engaging men and women from all walks of life to work through complex issues. And these are complex times we're living in. And because they're complex times, we are so grateful. Well, the last comeback story, Brother Best is on. I just want you, Brother Best, to give us one or two nuggets on how to make a comeback. You're talking about a phenomenal story. Brother Best is a dear friend, dear brother, dear Oma Bear, but had a major accident and had to have, he's an amputee, but you would never, ever know it. He was over to my mom's house with me. And I told my mom, I said, that's Brother Best. She said, she looked at him because he was outside just a moving. She said, him? She said, he the one with the accident? I said, yes, he the one who had. She said, well, you can't tell it. And so, Brother Best, if somebody's on the side of the road, feeling defeated, stuck, and don't think they can make a comeback from a wheelchair to a walker to now walking, what would you tell them?
Thank you, Pastor. First of all, just have a spiritual support group, not just your fraternity. I have fraternity brothers, but my spiritual fraternity, boot camp brothers, and of course you, Pastor Webster, and the ladies, you and my wife definitely. But you have to have that support group. The one thing I would say is, it is a boot camp principle that life is not a dress rehearsal. It is the real thing.
Yes.
And when you go through that, just understand that with your prayers and in your preemptive prayers, you might not use those prayers today, but preemptive prayers will get you through in the future.
Thank you so much, Brother Best. Okay, let me open it up because boot camp, one of the things we normally open up for conversation, send some questions to the box. If somebody want to say anything or your takeaway from the last 2 days. Okay, y'all are on. If you want to say something, you can unmute or send a question to the box. Anybody for your take. Okay, go ahead.
Well,
Pastor Webster, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Somebody said, Pastor Webster, go ahead.
Okay, this is Brother Curtis. Just tell the Marine I said simplify. Thanks for your service.
Thank you, Brother Curtis. I'm so happy that you're on. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right.
Pastor, I was going to say, you asked for principles last night, and the principle that I had in mind was that stop designing your career and start designing your life.
He has one too.
Yes.
And the reason that stuck with me was because I was thinking about everything that took place was that I had to divorce myself from the
Just
band.
need to buy a car.
I had to divorce myself from my lifestyle to sustain my life.
Wow.
So
Wow.
instead of divorcing from your wife and your spouse, sometimes you have to divorce from yourself and your
Yes.
life and your career to
That's
sustain
pretty.
life.
Wow. That's pretty heavy. That's pretty heavy, Brother Moncrief. That's pretty heavy. And we'll chew on that one. And we'll have all of this so you can go back and watch the tape. Someone else?
Yes, Pastor.
Okay, Dwayne.
I appreciate these 2 days, especially the combination of men, women, and family is very important. And you know, I always say the boot camp principle is the key, especially for what we gotta do to change these youths. Boot camp principles help men that hold things in have a release mechanism instead of going to see a psychiatrist. And when I first came to the church and I asked you, could I give a testimony? And I was crying. Y'all my support group. I have a dysfunctional family. I pray to God for some of my family to come, but just by hearing these stories, like I heard the last 2 days, and y'all, when I first got there, a lot of people couldn't understand me because I speak my mind, but I try when I speak to make sense when I speak. So now a lot of people that used to pick with me, they saying how proud they are of me. And I keep telling them it's because I observe people whose actions line up with their mouth, and that's who I gravitate to. And I'm applying myself. I'm not just coming, trying to look nice in church. I'm not trying to talk to nobody. I'm letting God work with me. Just like when we went, and we got to go this week coming up, when we went to Amberwoods, if you notice, I knew the people didn't know we was there. I started walking out like I'd been doing all my life, going to find people, but I didn't mess with no doors because you don't know what people's doing of the world on the weekends, just knocking on their privacy. When I seen people out, I let them know that we was getting away food, but I told them we're doing something that's bigger than this food. We're going to start working with these young people hands-on. I said, because we tired of them killing themselves. And I just want to apply myself, and that's all I got to say.
Brother Dwayne, thank you. You have an amazing comeback story. Let me hear from a few ladies.
Man, brother.
Because the brothers will take it up. Ladies, y'all can talk. All
I
right.
have a come up in a takeaway.
Okay. Who is this?
Mackenzie.
Okay, Mackenzie. Great to have you back tonight. Go ahead.
When Sister Rakia Bacon was talking, she said that she's coming back, but she's not 100%, and she doesn't know how to measure what would be back 100%. And it just kind of reminded me of how in rehab they ask you, what are your goals? You know, what do you want to do today? What do you want to do this week? And I was just like, I mean, I want to get back to normal, you know, and they said, okay. And then as through the process, I learned that like, there's no such thing as a normal anymore. And
Wow.
you hear on the news say like, you know, sometimes they say there's some things we won't ever go back to doing. Like some people say buffets are kind of just a thing of the past now.
Right.
And so I just kind of wanted to say and really tell myself that like, you can come back, but you don't have to go back. You know, like if come back, you can create something new. And just hearing Sister Akia talk, she'll never have that person that will be what her husband was to her. She'll never have that best friend again. And not to say that in like a discouraging way, but just to, you know, it is like for her, you know, it is what it is. No one will ever take his place. She may find another best friend, you know, that doesn't mean she's gonna replace. And so it's not, people may see and they say, well, she never got over. No, you can kind of move forward and come back and go in a new direction or go to something new. So like for myself, there's things I can't, you know, go back to, like just because of what happened, but I don't take that as me not coming back. And the second thing I wanted to share really quickly was you were saying like accept Christ's forgiveness. And I know something that I struggle with was I would ask for forgiveness for something when I was in trouble, or when I needed him to do something for me, because I knew I was like, okay, I cannot ask for help and I done X, Y, and Z, you know? And so sometimes I didn't even ask for help because I knew I had to stop certain things and I wasn't ready to do it. So I didn't even try to ask for forgiveness. So like, you know, just like you was just saying, you know, when you repent, it's, to me, it's one thing to ask for forgiveness, but you can repent through your actions. And so that's something that I learned, like, okay, you're asking for forgiveness, but are you repenting? And if you're not, then you're gonna feel bad when God just keeps giving you more and more blessings, and then you feel stuck. And it's like, I can't have one foot in, one foot out. Like, you know, once you're on this path, you got to go all in, basically.
Mackenzie, great observation. Let me say something too. You know, when you're talking about normal, you know, everybody done heard the term now, living in a new normal. And that's where a lot of us are. We're dealing with new normals. You know, you're married and then your spouse died. We're wearing masks, you know what I mean? Going places, still got to get temped. People got to get vaccinated. It's a new normal. Thank you for that observation. Curtis, I really appreciate you. I think you made that comment from New Jersey. I just figured that out.
Yes, sir. First Baptist pastor.
Yeah, Dr. Soares' church. We're so grateful that you are on tonight. Well, how many of you have been blessed tonight? It is now 7:48. And Ryan, any questions in the box? Any questions in the box before we wrap it up? Any questions in the box?
Comment that Sister Reed and Brother Reed made, their takeaway from last night is to fight because God will fight with you.
Okay, so here's what I love you to do. As anybody else before we conclude tonight, I'm gonna give you 3 questions for homework. You figured I want you to do this for me. Anybody else before we could?
Pastor, if I can just say one thing, this or 2 things. This is Renee Betts, and I just want to say thank you for this evening. And I want to say to Mackenzie, I am so proud of her. I mean, she was one of our babies. I am just so very proud of her. And, you know, she talked about that comeback and, you know, and you talked about the new normal. And, you know, a lot of the things that I was thinking about again is like, you know, some of the racial injustices, you know, we don't want to go back to that, right? We want to move forward. But the other thing that I got from Mackenzie was that confidence. And as Deacon Bess was talking about, you know, his greatest confidence or his greatest comeback, I only had confidence because there were so many things that I didn't do, I couldn't do, but I know God was doing. I didn't have the power or the strength to do. And then, so my last thing, I just want to remind everyone too, is that, you know, I grieved, even though Lamar was the one who lost his leg, I grieved the things that we would do prior to him losing his leg, right? When he didn't have a leg. So there's other ways that we grieve losses. So some people are grieving losses because they don't have their partners anymore. Some people grieve losses, you know, because it's that anticipated loss where their loved one, they used to go on dates and maybe they're on dialysis and they can't go on those dates anymore. You know, so there are just so many different ways that we grieve losses. So I just want those who are grieving losses in other ways to know that the greatest comeback is still our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, that they could also come back.
That is Sister Renee. I didn't see you on, but I guess I'm scrolling down now. Thank you. And that is well said, because, you know, when you really think about this whole issue, I like what you said. Things that you used to do, and your spouse is sick and you can't do them anymore. And yet you struggle because that's dead now. You can't bring it back. One of the reasons why we do boot camp is to have a platform whereby we can engage, equip, build camaraderie, talk, and do life together. And tonight, again, our approach to learning is not just from me, the teacher, but that we learn from one another. And the power of our boot camp is discussions like this, when you guys chime in and speak your heart. I see a couple of more comments in the box, Ryan, and then we'll wrap it up for the night so we all can eat dinner if you haven't ate yet. Ryan, go ahead.
Sister Rena said, it's okay to look back as long as you glance back.
Yeah, glance and not gaze at it, because if you gaze, you get stuck. But if you glance, you're going to keep on moving. Someone else, Ryan?
Yeah, Sister Carolyn Betts said the comeback is always better than the setback. Thank you, Pastor, and all those who gave testimonies.
Thank
And
you guys so much.
Sister Gooch also said, I hope we can do this again before Holy Week next year. Pastor Webster.
It takes a lady to try to push us to do something. Well, I tell y'all got a good study
Pastor
coming.
Webster.
I hear you. I get you. Someone is talking. Y'all got a good study coming up with Sister Betts the next 6 weeks. So Sister Gooch, plug right on into it. All right. Okay, go ahead. Someone's trying to make.
This is Brother Stewart. Stay prayed up. And then I got a boot camp principle. No man is an expert at everything, but all men are good at something.
Great. All right. Well, here's how we're going to close tonight. Ryan, just slide into the 2 questions real quick, and I'm going to pray. Here's y'all's homework assignment. All right. And think through this the rest of the week. The questions at the end, here's what I'd like for you to do. All right. Because we don't want to just have the dialogue and teach for teaching's sake. Here's the homework so you can think through as it relates to your own story. I challenge you to write your own comeback story. I don't know, maybe you don't have them there, but that's okay. Write your own comeback story. All of us have a comeback story. The second thing after you write it, share, like Mackenzie, Rakia, the Moncriefs, Brother Betts, and those that you are on, there it is right there. First write it, then share it. And then finally, all of us can make a comeback tonight because the greatest comeback partner is Jesus Christ. You all agree?
Amen.
Christ. Thank you for joining us tonight. Put your hands over your chest, give one another a big hug, and we're going to pause to pray tonight. Father, we thank you for the privilege of being able to just come into so many people's homes and to share with them, oh dear God, your word, your story. We thank you, oh dear God, that when we look at Peter, in many ways, when we look at him, we don't even think about him denying you.
All right.
Because we can't read 1 Peter and 2 Peter without understanding that he accepted your forgiveness. He answered the question, but then you allowed him to take action. And we have 1 Peter and 2 Peter because Peter made that comeback and moved beyond his setback. We thank you, oh dear God, that the church is in existence because Peter was the first one in Acts chapter 2 to preach on the day of Pentecost. Even though he had a setback, he made a comeback and you still used him. I want to pray tonight for all of those who are here who've had setbacks. Let them know, oh dear God, that their pain can become their platform. Remember tonight, oh dear God, all of those who are struggling or wrestling, who are disappointed, defeated, down, and disconnected, as it's already been said, because it was the third time that Jesus showed up in John 21 to Peter and the disciples. He was in a grave for 3 days. And this Holy Week, we celebrate because your power raised him up. Tonight, raise up marriages. Tonight, raise up singles. Tonight, continuously raise up those who are struggling emotionally and psychologically. Tonight, raise up those who are struggling physically. And whether it's testimonies like Brother Betts or Mackenzie's or Gabe's or Sister Rakia's or Sister Tina Moncrief or Brother Moncrief or those who did not talk, let them know because you got up and nothing could hold you down. There's nothing that can hold us down because your faithfulness is more powerful than our unfaithfulness. We love you and we thank you for this Holy Week. Bless the young men who will preach tomorrow night in the 7 sayings of Christ. Give them strength to encourage our hearts and help us all to accept your forgiveness. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Give one.